Hi guys, how's everybody doing? This is a video I've been meaning to do for about 4 months. I just haven't had the time, to be honest with you. I've got a bit of a free afternoon. It's very, very hot outside. I've done my shopping yesterday. I've got no reason to go out. And I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to make this video. It's a bit of a memory lane video. Let me just read out a comment. The reason I wanted to make this video was that the viewer who sent in this comment gave me the idea, and I thought it's a great idea. Not everybody will be interested, but there'll be a bit of information that I'd like to share with you, and you might find it entertaining as well as interesting. So I won't name any names, but the viewer wrote to me, well, a subscriber actually, Peter, maybe you've already done a video on this, but I'd like to hear your story. I've put some stuff together over the last year listening to you, but maybe you could do a short video from the beginning. Your first time, what brought you to Thailand? When did you first hear about it? Some of your story situations you found strange and how things have changed over the years. What do you do to fill your day? What did you do in the beginning that you no longer do now? Friends or family reactions, have you lost any of them relations due to your lifestyle? If you could go back 20 years ago, would you change things, or what was the biggest financial blunder earning you've ever made? So I think that's quite a good set of questions there, and I've prepared everything so that I answer everything as best as I can. And his first question was basically, how did I come to Thailand? Well, anybody who knows me knows that I was in the hotel industry for about 30 years. I worked for a French company called Accor, went all over Southeast Asia, spent about 4 years in the Middle East, and I could go on a long list there. But what brought me to Thailand initially was I was working in a venue in Singapore at the time, and I was sent to the Philippines to try and find a live band, because there's a lot of Filipino live bands, obviously, that are very, very good. And the person who arranged the tickets for me to come over to get that live band from the Filipinos or see some auditions through agents actually got me a real cheap ticket where I had to stay in, it was the Asia Hotel. I don't know if you remember, that's a real old hotel. And I stayed there for just one night. So the actual first time I actually touched down on Thai soil was 1991. But it wasn't until 1994 that I actually came to live here. I was sent up to Khon Kaen in Isan, lived there for about 2 years, and I was part of the opening team and the Sofitel there. It's still there, but it's been rebranded. I believe it's a Pullman there. So that was the first time. That was the first thing that brought me to Thailand. Now, with regarding memories and things that stick out over the last 30 years or so, I did a video about 18 months ago. I'll pin that to this video, or I'll put a description in the comments. And that was similar to what I'm going to do today, but it was completely different because I just listed out 20 things that I can remember. But this guy's questions are a little bit different, so I'm going to try and answer him the questions as best as I can. So one of the questions were some personal memories, things that stick out. Now, I've got absolutely many personal memories, and good memories and bad memories of things that have happened in Thailand, not just to me, but to others. And I've just listed out 10, and I'll go through these. So one of my earlier memories was the manager from Big Dog's Beer Bar getting a hiding from a bunch of Thai guys. And what it was, if you know, as you go into Nana Plaza, Big Dog's is now gone. It's been taken over by Stumble. It's one big bar. But as you walked in, it used to be Big Dog's. It might have been called something else in the old days. But in those days, in the very early days of Nana Plaza, everybody who worked in Nana, they'd park their motorcycles. As you walk in, there was no security, pat downs, anything like that. You just walked in, walked out, and all the motorcycles for the Thais were parked along the left-hand side of the entrance. In other words, outside Big Dog's along. They did no harm. They didn't block anything. But there was a new manager was taking on a white guy, basically, an American, and he wanted to impress his boss, obviously, and he decided he'd make a rule that no motorcycles were to be parked there. And what he actually did, he taped it off. He put this plastic, you know, the plastic that the police use, this checkered plastic. He got some stands, and he basically cut the area off. You know, he sealed it off. That's what I'm trying to say. And of course, the Thais turned up at night, asked who had done this, said the farang in the bar, and they were like, you know, they just parked anyway. He came out and he made some more secure barriers the next day. Well, of course, he really wound them up, and he just ended up getting attacked by all these Thai guys on motorcycles. They won't bother you, but if you try and implement your rules on them, you know, I feel sorry for you. But that's what happened to him. That was my first memory of something bad that happened. A second memory was a guy, I was working in the Sofitel in Khon Kaen, And a guy who had met in Bangkok, I wasn't friends with him, but I'd met him in some bars, and he lived here, he seemed to have some money. He wasn't rich, but he could hold his own. And I lost contact with him, and about a year later, he turned up in the brewery, in the entertainment centre, in the Sofitel, and he actually looked at me. We'd been talking for a while, and he said to me, "Do you need that belt?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it holds my trousers up. Why?" And he said, "Oh, I haven't got one." And I'm like, "Well, you can buy one outside." He was basically penniless, and he'd come up and he was just scrounging off anybody and everybody he knew. So, you know, these things do happen. My third memory was stepping into Therme Cafe for the first time. I'd come down from Khon Kaen on a trip to Bangkok. I can't remember what the reason was. They used to put me up in the Mercure Hotel. It's now reverted back to its original name, the Bangkok Palace, and it's far from that, but that's where they used to put me up. It was a sister hotel, and I'd do what I had to do in the daytime, and then I'd meet up with my friend Simon, and we'd go out for drinks in the evening. Now, I was still fairly new to Thailand at this time, and I'd never heard of Therme Cafe. I came down, and those were the days when Pat Pong was still the best place to go to. I'm talking probably 25 years ago. And we'd had a night in Pat Pong, and I was really drunk. You know, it was one of those nights I just wanted to go home, step into the shower, because I was sticky, hot, I'd been in aircon, walking about, back in the aircon. You know those nights, and you just hit a wall where you don't want to drink any more alcohol. That's where I was. And my friend Simon, this was about 3:30 in the morning, he said, "Oh, just one more. And I said, "Well, let's go somewhere quiet so I can, you know, with aircon, that we can chill out." And he took me down the steps of Therme, which I don't know what it's like now. I haven't been in for a while, but in those days, it was absolutely rammed, wall to wall. I thought I'd gone to hell or heaven, depending on however you look at it. And I ended up leaving there at 6:30 in the morning. It's not like now where they close at 2 and, you know, people are hanging about outside up until 3 and that's it. It used to stay open until the last customer had left. And I remember coming out of there at quarter past, 6:30 in the morning, blinding sun. I was looking at the ties on the buses going to work, and I thought I was going to die. So I actually enjoyed Therme after that, but that particular night was hell. Okay, right, number 4. Now, this was one of the most stupid things I've ever done in Thailand. You know, people say, "Did you make any mistakes? Have you done anything stupid?" This was pretty stupid. Luckily, and I do mean luckily, nothing happened to me. I got away with it. Again, I was with my friend Simon. We were in Jump Team. We drank too much. It was about 4 o'clock in the morning. And in those days, I owned an old BMW 5 Series. I don't know why I even bought a car, but I do silly things like that. And I'd bought this old BMW 5 Series, and you know, drinking and driving in those days, back in the 90s, it wasn't really an issue. You know, unless you crashed or you hurt somebody, everybody did it. And I'm ashamed to say I did it as well. I don't anymore, obviously, and they've cracked down on it big time now. It's a very, very serious offence, quite rightly so here in Thailand, like the rest of the world. But we took the BMW to the end of Jomtien. In those days, it was a lot more quieter than it is now. You didn't have the condominium blocks, and it kind of, after about halfway down, there was pretty much nothing there. But I was drunk, he was drunk, and I was doing handbrake turns. I mean, we were shooting down Jomtien, wheel round, handbrake turn, and we were screeching. And we did that for about 15 minutes. Luckily, we didn't have any accidents. We didn't kill anybody. But it's one of those memories that when I look back on it, I think, God, what could have happened? You know, imagine if I'd knocked down and killed a Thai, or, you know, we'd flipped the car or something. So I don't really want to think about that one anymore. Okay, so number 5, I remember seeing a guy at Soy Cowboy, and it wasn't that I felt sorry for him, I just felt really embarrassed, really. There was a guy in Soy Cowboy, and he'd met this girl in a bar, and he decided that she was going to be his girlfriend, and they'd been going together on and off, and obviously she'd been seeing other customers, but he was a bit naive, and she'd met somebody with a lot more money than him, and she basically told him, "That's it, I don't want to see you anymore, I want to carry on working." And she hooked up with this other guy, and I remember seeing this guy outside at, I think it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, talking to this girl, and he was actually crying full tears, and he was begging her, literally begging her not to go off with this other guy, and that was a horrible thing to see, horrible. I mean, you look at this video and you might laugh and think, "Oh, what an idiot, what a simp," but to actually watch a guy begging a girl not to go off with another guy with tears running down his face, it was horrible. Okay. The next one was funny, but not for the people involved. So I was sitting in Soye in Pattaya, again 18, 20 years ago, and in those days I used to stay in the Easterny Inn, which is now called the Easterny Hotel. As you come up from the beach, it's the first, I think it's the first hotel on the left. where the Subway sandwiches is, that used to be, it's not even Subway now, is it? It's something else. But it used to be a little travel shop. Then you had the Eastern Inn, and then on the corner was a Family Mart. You walk up, and then both sides of Soi 8 were absolutely rammed with bars. There was nothing going on at LK. There was no LK Metro or Soi Buakhao, or there was, but there was no entertainment. It was just a Thai area. And so I remember I was, again, if you watch my channel, you know me, I'm not a big drinker in the daytime, but I was out with a friend and we were just decided to sit in a bar, and I'm quite comfortable to sit there and have a soda water, and it was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So if you can imagine, you're walking up Soi 8 from the beach, Eastern Inn on the left, go a bit further, you've got those rows of bars on the right, haven't you? Or you did have, I don't know if you still have. And then a bit further up, you had some other bars, which were not the long bars, just kind of square bars. And we were sitting on one of those square bars as you walk up the street on the left. And I was looking over to the right, and there's a woman sitting underneath a speaker. I guess it was her husband and her bar. And there's real big speaker about that. I can't even get it into the camera, but real big speaker. So he was up at the top of this bar, and he was doing something, trying to connect a wire or playing about with the change on this speaker, and his poor old wife was sitting underneath, and all of a sudden the speaker dropped and literally landed on her head, and she was so angry she ended up like laying into the guy, and again, not funny for her, but to watch this happen, it was comical. It was straight out of, you couldn't make it up. The guy's adjusting a speaker, it falls on his wife's head, and then his wife lays into him. Okay, right, here's a very serious memory. Now, this is something that happened a long time ago up in Khon Kaen in the Sofitel. So we used to have, in the basement of the Sofitel, we had an entertainment complex called the Underground. There was a hostess lounge, a karaoke, there was a German brew house, and there was what was, in those days, a nightclub. So we had quite a large nightclub with a revolving stage, and it started off with a band on the stage, and then, I can't remember what it started with. It was disco, actually. So the band would come in, was supposed to start about 10:30. The club would open up at 9, or the disco. The DJ was there looking at the stage, and he'd be playing just records, people are dancing. 10:30, the stage revolved, and the band were playing as they came around. It was quite a cool thing. And they weren't a bad band. They were from Bangkok, and we housed them up in Khon Kaen. But the lead singer, I can't even remember his name, he had a terrible attitude. He didn't respect anybody. He hated Falang, and he hated the fact that I was in charge of, I was his boss. Absolutely hated it. He didn't do what he was told. He was so lippy. He used to, I'll give you an example. I'd walk into the club at night when it was packed. He'd be on stage. I'd be standing against the wall, discreet, just looking on what's going on. And he'd say something on the mic, and everybody would look round at me, and a few of the girls would laugh and stuff. So he was hard work. He wouldn't come to work on time. Sometimes they didn't start till 11:30 on a Saturday night, and we gave them every opportunity. We spoke to the rest of the band and said, look, this guy's going to cock it up for you. They had a good gig, a real good gig. And he was just a nightmare. He was a real nightmare. So I got together with the food and beverage manager, and we took a decision. So we knew it would be really hard to replace these guys, to get rid of them. Not replace them as in getting another music band, but to get rid of them, because they were just, he in particular was just one of those guys that wouldn't just go. So we devised a plan. I came down to Bangkok, hired another band, told them when to came up. We housed them in a separate house. It was all done cloak and dagger. And on the day in question, at the back of the hotel, we have the loading area where all the goods come in. And what I did with the security, I arranged for all the drums and guitars and all their kit. We had some kit, but some of it was theirs. I arranged for all their kit to be boxed up, their lockers to be emptied, labelled up, and everything was to be placed outside of the loading area. It was covered, but it was open. And I told all the security, when the band turns up, they're not permitted to enter the hotel. Everything has been collected, it's boxed up, it's named, and it's there. And of course, they turned up at night, and the other band, the new band, was on stage, and they found out that there was another band playing. So of course they didn't know what was going on. Eventually they found out what was going on, and he went berserk, absolutely berserk, tried to fight his way in. He didn't get in. The owner came, the guy who financed the hotel. We were the management company. Him and his wife drove in, and the guy jumped on the bonnet of this guy's car. And I never did see him again, but I'd heard he was, he wanted to do me in, as it were. But he'd call me up. A couple of times I got caught out. He'd call me up and he'd say, is that Peter? And then he'd just start cursing me out on the phone. And the third time I recognised his voice, just hung up, and I never heard from him again. So, there is some horrible people about here in Thailand. There's a lot of nice people, but there are a few horrible people. one of my memories, I was in a small go-go bar, I think it was called Rodeo, just before you get to Walking Street, and Steve Davis, the famous pool player, walked in, and he was sitting from here, like 2 yards away from me. I was with a friend, he just said, "Hi, Steve." Steve said hi. Things like that stand out in your memory. Number 9, I've only got 10, so we're getting there now. Number 9 was Angel's Disco in the Nana Hotel. Again, disco, it's such a dated word, isn't it? So in those days, again, as I said earlier in the video, there was no kind of time where they had to close. There might have been a law, but most places stayed open when they wanted to. But Nana did have a kind of, I think they closed around 3-ish, for whatever reason. Nana closed down 2:33, something like that. Not all the bars, but the majority of the big ones. And what had happened is everybody who didn't want to go home, and a lot of the girls who worked in the bars in Nana, they would migrate, walk across the car park into the Angels Disco. And I'll tell you where it is. As you walk into the Nana Hotel, you've got reception on your right, haven't you? And then you go straight on, and Angels Disco was right there, and it was heaving, it was packed, had some very, very good fun nights in there. That's long gone, that place. And just a memory that sticks out, you know, very, very many good nights in Angels. And as it happens, the Hooters at the front of the Nana Hotel used to be very, very, before it was a Hooters, it was a Thai bar, and it was a very short bar. So it had a green canopy over the front. It was typical Thai bar. You sit at the bar, and it was only a couple of yards deep. And people used to sit there and people watch. That's why it was fairly successful. But when you look at Hooters now, the whole length of Hooters, that used to be the Nana coffee shop. And in the height of Angel's Disco, when it was in its height, you know, 100 people had come out of there, and they'd go for breakfast in the Nana coffee shop. It was quite something to see at kind of maybe 5, 6 in the morning, you know, all these people going into the Nana coffee shop. Of course, those days are long gone, and the coffee shop obviously was too big, hence why obviously they've given the space to Hooters, which is, they're utilising it much more now. And my last sort of personal memory, I'll tell you about some of the changes as well, but my last kind of personal memory is getting on the internet in the early 90s. Now, I have mentioned this in the video that I'm going to pin, so you can skip it on the next one or listen to it in more detail. But in those days, I had to get on the internet. I won't get into it, but I had to get onto the internet. And most hotels in Pattaya in those days, you couldn't just pick up the phone and it'd have a dial tone, and you called. Mobile phones were non-existent. We had it was pagers. Do you remember the little things you put on your belt, and if somebody wanted you, you'd look at it, there'd be a number, you go to a public call box or a home line, you know, a landline. There were no mobile phones, but I had to get onto the internet. And in the old days in Pattaya, you had to dial 0 and ask the operator to dial for you. Well, of course, the old dial-up, for those of you out there who are dinosaurs like me and you remember dial-up, you know, it was like, it actually did dial up the connection to the internet, and it was slow. And because we had to dial out, as it were, you had to talk to the operator. The way we got round this was, I pulled the bed from the wall, and I took a razor blade and I spliced the plastic. I took the plastic off the wires, revealing only copper wires, and then I had another wire that plugged into my laptop with 2 hooks of copper, and I hooked them round the wires I'd spliced, and I was able to just dial straight out. And that's something I remember. Nowadays, every hotel down there, and in those days as well in Pattaya, you had the choice of fan rooms or air-conditioned rooms. Most of about half to 60% of hotel rooms, budget hotel rooms, had a fan. So I can't remember prices back then, but in today's money, let's just say an air-conditioned room with 1,000 baht, you could have a room with a fan on it for, say, 500 baht, and a lot of people opted for that. Let's go on to some changes that I've noticed a lot of changes. Okay, so I've wrote down 12 things that, lots and lots of changes in the last 30 years, but these are some of the bigger ones. Okay, so the first one on the list is dial-up and internet cafes. So when the internet was in its infancy, and a lot of the girls were collecting sponsors, and the internet was a great way to do that. And I remember a lot of the girls from Nana, there used to be an internet cafe that they'd use, and they had girls in there that spoke English, and they'd charge a fee, and they'd type in English letters to their sponsors or boyfriends or potential sponsors. You know how it is if you're experienced here. And what they'd do, you'd go over there about 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and it was full of bar girls, you know, and they were all on sitting next to girls who was writing messages for them. And I'll tell you where it was. It was when you go, I forget the name of the alleyway, but I think it was Soi 5 before you get to Foodland. Was it Soi 5? It's either Soi 5 or Soi 7. There's an alleyway. It used to be very stuffy. There'd be a load of nail bars, hairdressers and things on the left, and you could cut through from there to Soi 5 or Soi 7. You'll know where I mean if you're familiar with it. And the internet cafe used to be there on the right, and that's all gone, of course. They all carry the latest iPhone now, don't they? I remember Nana when I first got to Thailand. Nana Plaza, it was just transitioning from it was called Nana Plaza Shopping Mall originally. That's what the sign said. And when I arrived, the centre of Nana Plaza was a car park. There was nothing there. There was a few bars in there, but on the third floor there was a big snooker, not pool, snooker hall. On the other side there was a kind of dormitory for the bar girls. And then on I can't remember the floors, but the legit businesses that were still in Nana Plaza when I arrived, there was a gold shop, there was a Lebanese restaurant, there was a travel agency, there was a pharmacy, and then there was a few bars. And of course, over time, the bars produced a lot more revenue, a lot more profits, so the landlords could see that they could raise the rents. So the rents went up and up and up until legitimate businesses like pharmacies and travel agencies couldn't afford the rent. They moved out, and because it was becoming a magnet as a tourist, a magnet for tourists who were looking for that sort of thing, more and more bars went in there, and there was no cover, you know, so if it rained, all the centre of Nana Plaza got wet as well. And I remember when you walked into Nana Plaza, on the left, I said earlier in this video, there was a video called one big bar called Big Dogs. Well, when I first arrived, they were 3 small bars. They were 3 independent bars. Somebody bought them up and turned them into one big bar. There used to be a bar on the right called Lucky Luke's, which was a very popular afternoon bar, and obviously it's changed a lot since then. Okay, I was going to mention the coffee shop in Hooters as a number 3, but I've actually already explained that, so we'll jump on to Soi number 4. So Soi Cowboy in those days, it was completely different. There was no neon like there is now. It was all coloured bulbs, fairy lights, Christmas lights, and the bars were, the go-go bars, the most popular one at the time when I first arrived was Long Gun. That was the most popular one. You didn't have the go-go bars that had all the money spent on them like they do now. Some of them are almost like, you know, high-tech nightclubs with all the lighting and special effects, and not special effects, but you know what I mean. There's a lot of money being put into them. In those days, they were much more simpler. There were no outside bars, so you could actually drive down Soi Cowboy, and it was just bars. And some of the older surviving bars that are still there today, After School, that's a very, very old bar. The Toy Bar, that's been there forever and a day. That was another afternoon popular haunt for some of the guys. And there isn't much more to say about it. That's pretty much it. But other than that, when you walked into these bars, there was no mobile phones. The girls would give you a Y. They'd hand you a pa yen, you know, the wet towel. You'd get a nice wet towel. You'd come in from the heat. They'd come and give you a little massage. And there was a lot more customer service involved. It's gone very industrial, I'll call it at the moment, very industrial. So I do think, I don't want to be one of those, in the good old days it was better. We're never going to go back. Everything goes forward. I'm sure it's still a lot of fun for a lot of people, but it was just different. Okay, changes. Okay, and similar, I was going to say Walking Street in Pattaya, pre-neon and Soi Diamond. So Walking Street in the old days, again, there was not all this neon. You walk down there now, it's like Las Vegas. It really is. It was a lot more kind of, you know, things went on there as they do today, but it was a lot more kind of discreet than it is now. You know, it wasn't kind of anybody could go down there. It was, you know, there was no actual go-go bars on Walking Street when I first arrived. The go-go bars were off side streets, primarily Soi Diamond. That's the one where they had a famous bar in the middle called the Carousel Bar. It's where Phil Le Pub is based, a bit further up there. The hotel there, my fridge is just going off now. The Soi Diamond hotel on the right, that's recently closed down during COVID. It's not reopened, but that's a very, very famous hotel. When you hear stories in Pattaya about when the Americans came in, and they came in for R&R, you know, very, very often, a lot of them would be based in that hotel. They had a soapy massage and disco based in that hotel. Very, very, a lot of memories. If those rooms could speak, there'd be a lot of memories being told. But that's something I remember. That's something that's changed now. Soi Diamond's kind of died a death. There's a few bars there. Phil's doing okay. And Walking Street is just completely different now. As I say, for me, it's like walking in Las Vegas, not very discreet at all. The other big thing, there was no BTS and there was no MRT here. So I remember in the early 90s when the red structures went up, the metal structures, when they were building the BTS. Asok, when they were building the MRT station, it was a mess, you know, you can imagine. I used to live on Soi 38 at the time, and I would drive up to the Nana car park. You could do that in those days. And it was hell on earth, because, you know, you can imagine, look at all the people who are on the BTS and the MRT, take away that and put them in cars, and it was a nightmare. People don't realise, they say the traffic's bad in Bangkok now, but it was much worse then. And yeah, the infrastructure's really improved a lot, and it's much, much better. Something else I remember, this is not a nice memory, but when you walk down Sukhumvit, you'd see a lot of cockroaches scurrying about, especially in the evening at night, and rats everywhere. But you still see the odd cockroach and the odd rat, but thankfully not too many now. I don't know how they've cleaned them up or what they've done, but it's nowhere near as bad as it was. Okay, number 7 of changes I've seen in Thailand. There's a lot more Western influences here now. When I came here, there was literally no fast food. There was no McDonald's, Pizza Hut. The only chain was a company called M&M. I think it was M&M or H&M, something like that. I've got that name totally wrong, but it was in the old Pantit Plaza. They did kind of like a Coca-Cola with an ice cream float, and I think they did, I never actually went in there, but I think they did burgers and French fries or something, but that was an American chain. I don't know if they're still there. Pantit Plaza is no longer the place to go for computer bits. It's now being preceded by the IT Fortune Mall, which is very, very good. But there was no fast food, so most of the Thais, they ate fresh food, fresh vegetables, fresh everything fresh. They cooked it themselves, very small portions. But what I've noticed now is, over the last 20 years especially, there's a lot more fast food. The Thais, they love KFC, they love pizza, and they eat McDonald's, and unfortunately this has had an effect on the health, and they're starting to look like Westerners now. A lot of them are starting to fill out, so that's a real big change. You know, all the Thais used to be very petite and slim. A lot of them still are, but they're, you know, Western food, bad influence. A&W, that I've written it down as the last number 8 here. A&W was a fast food chain I was talking about, and as I say, I don't know if it's still there. Another big change I've seen is all the apps that you can use here now. You can use Grab and Bolt. There's apps to order food, there's apps to book hotel rooms, everything's done online, and that's another big change. You know, in the old days, you couldn't book a hotel by going online. You had to, you know, buy a paper to book, you know, like the Lonely Planets guide or something like that, or you just turned up at the hotel. It's so much easier now with all the apps. You can do everything. I can sit here, go on my phone, and within half an hour a pizza will turn up or whatever I want. I do a lot of my own cooking. I'm still trying to lose a bit of weight. Yeah, that was my number 10, all the online food delivery services, apps like Food Panda and Lineman. Okay, and I believe ICOM, Siam, Asiatique and Suvarnabhumi Airport. Well, I know Suvarnabhumi Airport. I mean, they were in non-existence. I used to come to Thailand very frequent. I used to fly into the old Dong Muang Airport. And I remember I used to be a smoker. I used to smoke 2 packets of cigarettes a day. I haven't smoked for probably 20 years, maybe the odd one, but I definitely don't smoke now. And I remember one of the worst things for me traveling from England to Thailand and vice versa was not being able to have a cigarette. You know, I'd land and I'd just be racing to the front door to light that first cigarette. Then I'd get my head spin, I'd get that hit like the first cigarette I'd ever had. And I remember when I was leaving on Dong Muang Airport, you could go upstairs. It was always a night flight I got. It took off at 1 o'clock in the morning or 1:30. So at night, the airport was very, very quiet. And they had a kind of 24-hour restaurant on the first floor of the old Dong Muang Airport. And it was more like it looked like a worker's cafe. You know, they had a singer on tap and, you know, some pre-packed meals in an old-fashioned glass case. And it was a huge place. It had no smoking signs. But I'd go in there and I'd order a couple of beers. And I sat right in the far corner and I'd be smoking. And they ignored me. They knew I was smoking. They just weren't as strict as they are now. And yeah, I mean, happy memories of the old Dong Muang Airport. It's still in operation today, but I haven't had an opportunity to go there because obviously flying in these days, it's the Suvarnabhumi Airport. And of course, number 12 on my list is the digital payment systems. I don't use money at all now. I use a Rabbit card if I go on the BTS. I've got a seniors MRT card. If I buy something from the 7-Eleven, I use my, I forgot the name of the app now, but there's an app for the True Money. That's what I use, the old memories going. And anything else, if I'm in a restaurant or even in a bar, I scan a QR code. Even these small street vendors now, you can scan. They just get the phone up, they get their code up on their phone, and you can scan. So I never, ever, rarely use money now. The only reason I'll carry a few baht in my pocket is to give the girls a tip. You know, if I'm in a restaurant and I get good service. But that's another change now. I've noticed a lot of the restaurants and bars, they're putting on a service charge of up to 10% and VAT. So you're actually paying an extra 17% on top of your bill. That might not sound a lot, but if your bill's 1,500 baht for you and a friend for dinner, you calculate it, it puts it up quite a bit. Nearly done with these now. Now, number 13 on my list is gourmet supermarkets. So when I first arrived here, it was very, very difficult outside of a 4 or 5-star hotel to get Western food or Western products. The first shop that started to sell a few Western products was Villa on Sukhumvit Soi 33. There's a lot of them about now. They've got one in Pattaya, there's one at the end of Soi 11, there's one in the Plonchit Centre, the original one at 33 is still there. They're all over the place now, and they're very, very good. They're slightly more to buy products than, say, Big C or Lotus, but that's understandable because it's imported, and they do a lot of foreign products. What I have noticed also is shops like Lotus, that used to be called Tesco Lotus, and Big C, which was a Carrefour, which is a French company, Carrefour, that was then preceded by Big C. I've noticed they now start to sell a lot more foreign products. Not as much as Villa, but for instance, if you're English, you'll know what HP sauce is. If you're American, that HP sauce is very similar to your A1 steak sauce, something like that. You can get that in Big C now. And of course, Lazada, ordering online. A lot of the things I'll order online, even food products. There's some very good food companies. You can buy, not that I eat a lot of pot noodles, but just as an example for this video, you can order, you know, English pot noodles, you can order American Hershey bars, you can order all sorts of things. So, you know, if you live here like I do now, there's a lot more opportunity to buy a lot more ingredients and a lot more products, and it's a lot easier than it used to be. I mean, when I had an apartment and I lived here years and years and years ago, sometimes I'd have to go to a hotel just to get a burger. You know, I mean, you know, Thai food is great, and people will often say to me, hey, you're living in Thailand, why don't you eat Thai food? You're eating a pizza, if I make a little 1-minute clip. But the thing is, you've got to remember, if you live here, sometimes you crave your own food, and you wake up and you think, you know what, I want a Burger King or I want a pizza, and that does happen. So it's very much easier now. You can get it all over the place. And lastly, as far as changes go, yeah, the entertainment, as I touched earlier, the entertainment areas such as Walking Street, Cowboy, Nana Plaza, I use the word industrial now because I think they've learned all the tricks in the books. You know, in the old days, you go into a bar, a girl wouldn't ask you for a drink, they'd talk to you where you come from, the normal sort of thing. They were much more pleasant, but now it's very, very hardcore. I was talking to a guy the other day, a guy I met for lunch, a viewer, and he said he went to Soy Cowboy, he sat down. You know, in the old days, a girl would come up and introduce herself and start talking, and she'd hope you'd offer her a drink, and then she'd sit down with you. But this girl just went up to him and she says, I want a drink, or I need a drink, something like that. You know, no smile, no who are you, where you're from, nothing like that. So it has changed. I think the customer service has gone out of it now. You're just there to have the money plucked out of your wallet. And I might sound a bit negative on this. It's still a lot of fun. Guys who come here for the first time, they enjoy it. But I just think the Thais now, they've sewn up all the loopholes. They know how to maximize as much money they can get out of foreigners. And why not? I mean, we all try to make as much money as we can, right? But it's not, I preferred it the other way. Okay, so that's the biggest changes I've really seen in Thailand. I could go on all afternoon and tell you a lot more changes, but the video is already into about 30 minutes, so I just want to finish off with how I spend my time here. So so let's just read the second half of this again, what the gentleman wrote to me. He said, some of your strangest situations you found, which I've done. What do you do to fill your day? So I'll answer that one first. So it varies from day to day. YouTube takes up a lot of my time. So I'll typically plan to make a video. I like to get out in the car and go down to Pattaya or go to Hua Hin or go to Chiang. And what I do is I always try to make a few videos when I'm away. So I go away for a couple of nights, 2 nights in a hotel. But the first thing I do is I'll film the room, I'll film the hotel. I've then got a video of that hotel, and I find that can be very, very helpful for people coming to an area for the first time. You do see videos on hotels on booking sites, but they always show the best rooms from the best angles. I'm just a regular guy. They don't know who I am. I don't ask permission in a hotel. I just go in and film the room, film the breakfast, and that way you can see what it's really like. So a lot of the time I'll go away, I'll make videos. I do my own background videos, you know, when I'm reading stories, I'm walking through Sukhumvit or I'm walking along the beach, and you know, they take time to do. So I'll try, when I go away, I try and do a live stream. I try and do at least one video, like a hotel review booking, and I try to do a walkabout B-roll, a background video. So that takes up a lot of my time. When I'm not away, a lot of my time here is spent editing. The editing takes a lot of time. Every other Sunday I'd have a live stream that takes up 3 hours in the evening, but what people don't realize, I have to prepare for about 3 hours in the afternoon. I have to sit down and do a lot of research. I have to find out what the currency conversions are. I troll all the news channels to try and find the quirky stories. The reason for that is when you do a regular live stream, it flows with all the comments, okay? I then do a members live stream, but because there isn't as many members as there is in the regular stream, sometimes the comments dry up, and if you don't prepare, you're just going to freeze because you don't know what you're talking about. Often people will say to me, how do you manage to talk for 3 hours? Well, that's how. I do a lot of preparation. I find news stories, quirky stories, and it always works out. Okay, so Sunday's pretty much taken up like that. On the alternate Sunday that I don't do a live stream, I try to get some me time in. You know, I'll go to the park, or I'll do a bit of shopping, or whatever needs to be done. I'll meet friends. I spend quite a lot of time meeting viewers. A lot of people are flying into Bangkok now, and some I can meet, some I can't meet. Most of them are very, very generous, so they'll buy me lunch. I don't take the mickey. You know, if somebody offers to buy me lunch, I'm very reasonable. I'll have a club sandwich or a burger. I don't go crazy. And other than that, you know, I've got the everyday things I need to do. You know, sometimes I'll need to go to the bank. I have to answer emails from, I've still got a connection in the UK with certain things, and the days just seem to go, don't they? I don't go out to night go-go bars anymore. They've kind of lost their excitement for me quite a long time ago. If I go out, I tend to meet friends for a nice restaurant meal. I'll go to somewhere like Monsoon or Det 5 or down in Soy 11 there and have a couple of drinks and a nice meal. But generally I'm home by about 11:30, midnight if I have a night out. I'm definitely not out till 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. Those days have long gone. Okay, so that's how I spend most of my day. And what was the other ones he was saying there? What did you do in the beginning that you no longer do now? Well, that's a good question, because when I first came out here, I'd just gone through a divorce, and I went straight to Pattaya, and I lived out of a suitcase in the AAA hotel, which is off the 3rd Road, and I did do a video about it, and that was just after COVID, and it was a big hotel, and it was absolutely empty, and it was a little bit spooky because they had these long corridors, and I never seen another guest in the 2 months I was there. Well, that's an exaggeration. I've seen one or two guests downstairs, but at night those corridors were empty. I didn't see anybody going into any of the rooms. Maybe we had one person on each floor. So what did I do different? So I was living out of a suitcase. I'm in a nice apartment now. I've got a freezer, I've got a fridge, I've got a cooker, I've got behind me, I've got these are full of food, and a nice 55-inch screen TV here. So I've got everything that I had when I was in the UK. But when I was in Pattaya, I was living out of a suitcase for 2 months. I just lost my family, still in contact with my daughters, but I was a bit sad. And I had to go out. I couldn't just sit in an empty hotel room and sit on the bed. There's nothing on the TV in a budget hotel. And yeah, that's what I did differently. So I came here and I was out every night. I used to go to Tree Town. I went to LK Metro nearly every night. And I spent a lot of the time out and about in Pattaya. Came here, got my apartment, and I don't do that anymore. So that's you know, a big change. Friends or family's reactions. Have you lost any of their relations due to your lifestyle? Well, I never came from a big family anyway, and I haven't. As far, well, you know, I got divorced. I've got 2 daughters. I haven't lost touch with them. They came here about 18 months ago. They had a great time. They asked if they could come this year, but honestly speaking, I can't afford to bring them here every year because it's the airfares for 2 people. You know, they're not going to sit in an apartment. I have to take them out. It all costs money. We went to Hua Hin, we went to Chiang. They had a fantastic time, and I enjoyed seeing them. So I haven't lost touch with my daughters. Obviously, I'm no longer in a relationship with my wife. But other than that, I don't have any family or friends in the UK because I've always worked abroad, and the friends I had at school that I grew up with, I drifted away. I don't know where they are. I suppose they got married, did what they got to do. And I had some, when I lived back in the UK, when I went back in 2000, I learned to fly, and I had a few hobbies. I used to shoot air rifles on an on a range, and I met some guys I became friendly with, and they were kind of friends, but not close friends, but I haven't kept in touch with them. There's no reason to, really. If you could go back 20 years, would you change anything? Or what was the biggest financial blunder? Okay, so the only change, I don't regret anything I've done since I've been here, apart from the handbrake turns in the BMW. I probably did one or two other silly things. I can't remember off the top of my head. Any regrets? Only one, and it's not really a big regret. So I don't regret anything I've done with my life as far as a career choice. Coming to Thailand, I'm still here. I love the country, I love the people. For me, I've been to a lot of countries around the world, including Southeast Asia. And this for me ticks all the boxes. It's where I want to be. I don't know how long I've got left. I hope I've got a good 10, 20 years before I have to turn the final page. But at the moment, I'm still healthy. I've lost some weight. The only thing I regret, if I have to name something I regret, I just wish I'd put a lot more money by. I did save a lot of money when I was in the hotel industry, but when you're away from the UK, you're not paying into your pension pot. Now, I do qualify for a pension, but it's not a full pension. And as far as regretting anything, I wish I'd paid into that pension and I had the full 30 years. That way here, I would have a nice, you know, probably around 35,000 baht a month, as it happens in 2 years' time. If the pensions don't get, if they don't raise the age like they've been talking about, I'll get about 25,000 baht a month. It's not a lot, but it's better than nothing, isn't it? So that's really the only thing I regret, is not being a little bit more financial, a little bit better with my finances. So if you're a bit younger, if you're one of those guys who's kind of 40, 45, 50, and you're still working and your dream is to one day retire here in Thailand, just try and keep that thought in your mind. You know, work hard, do plenty of hours, put that money away, invest it, be clever with your money. Then when you come out here, it will make such a difference to your life, and hopefully you'll have a good time here, settle down, meet a nice girl, and enjoy the rest of your life and your retirement, as it were. Right, so to the guy who sent in them the message there, thanks a lot. It was a great question. I'm glad I've now made the video. As I say, it's been 4 months in the pipeline. I just haven't had time to do it. It's now done. I'll go off and edit it, and I'll probably upload this in about a week or so. But I hope that's answered all your questions. If you've got any questions that you'd like to ask me, and they're not too personal, but on the lines of this kind of what we've discussed today, drop them in the comments below, and I'll try and answer. I generally answer every message, every email, every WhatsApp line, whatever. That's another thing that takes up a lot of my time. I don't ignore people. Okay, thanks guys for putting up with me today. I hope you found this video interesting, and maybe, who knows, in 10 years time, if I'm still around, I'll do a volume 2. And don't forget to check out the other video I did, link in the description as well, or I'll pin it. Thanks guys, I'll catch you next time around.